Hello and welcome. My name is Kendra Shaw, and I'm a social worker at Heart Counselling. And today I want to talk a little bit about somatic parts work. So, I'm going to start with a brief explanation of what parts work is, and then I'll move into a brief explanation of somatic therapy, and then what does it look like when we put those things together to kind of create an integrated model and approach. After that, I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about what types of things somatic parts work works really well for, who might be a good fit for somatic parts work. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to talk about how you can continue this work if it feels like something that you're really called to or you feel it's very much in alignment for you. All right, so we're going to start with a brief explanation of parts work. And this is just really the basics of parts work. But the first thing that I'll say is that parts work is an umbrella term. So it encompasses all kinds of different therapies and methods of self exploration. A couple that I'll mention that I draw from are things like shadow work. So, shadow work is a Jungian term that refers to finding and liberating the parts of ourselves that are probably unconscious for us, that have been rejected by ourselves or by society, and that hide in those shadows, parts of us that maybe we don't like very much. And through shadow work, we can turn towards that shadow and again, liberate those parts and gain the wisdom and integrate the wisdom that they actually hold. So, for instance, anger is often a shadow part for women in our society because we're told from a very young age that anger is not okay. So if we can liberate the parts of us that feel anger, we get to learn from that anger, and we get to bring that out of the shadow and into the light. Another type of parts work that is pretty common and is talked about quite a bit is something called inner child work. So inner child work is similar to shadow work, where we're going internal and we're trying to find that inner child. And inner children often hold on to things like early attachment trauma, pain that they might have experienced at an early age. Maybe they had to grow up too fast. Maybe they were raised by emotionally immature parents. So there are all these maybe pains that that inner child holds, um, and therefore they are kind of exiled. So in inner child work, we want to find the inner child and help them to set down those burdens. Some people will talk about reparenting the inner child, nurturing the inner child, so that they're able to regain all of those beautiful elements of being a child. Things like being playful or silly, trusting, innocent, all of those things that make children so wonderful. So those are a couple types of parts work. The one that I rely most heavily on, though, is called internal family systems. So, internal family systems therapy is a modality that was created by Dr. Richard Schwartz in the 80s. It's an evidence based method of parts work. And the things that I have on the screen here are all kind of taken from internal family systems. So, I'm going to go through those now. So, IFS, or internal family systems, will say that we're all made of many parts, and parts are natural and universal. So we're all born with parts. There's nothing pathological about having parts. It's not because we're broken. It's not because we're sick in any way that we have parts. It's actually extremely beneficial to have these parts. Parts protect us, they take on roles to protect us in our everyday life. Parts can hold on to pain for us so that we can come back to that pain when we have the capacity to deal with it. And parts also help us function kind of in the day to day. I have a part that comes on when I have to do public speaking that allows me to be confident enough to do this. Um, the next thing that I have on the slide here is that there are no bad parts. So this can be something that's really hard to remember when you're doing parts work or when you have parts that have extreme roles. But the truth is that each and every part of us that exists within us has a positive intention for us. They're just trying to help us survive, even the ones that seem to have very extreme roles. So, the idea here is that our systems adapt really creatively to pain and trauma in the moment when that's happening. And it probably works really well, whatever role they've taken on in that moment. So if you think about a child who maybe grew up in a household where there was violence, and that child learned to be really, really quiet, to never express their needs because that was met with aggression or that was met with violence in some way, the safest thing to do for that child was to keep everything inside, to stay really quiet, to never voice their needs. Now, that coping strategy, that part that does that, is no longer beneficial when they're an adult because now perhaps they're in a safe environment, but now they're not asking anybody to meet their needs and they're keeping all their needs to themselves. So that can breed resentment. That means that people aren't really connecting with them, all the kind of negative things that come with not being able to express yourself. So again, this part has a positive intention. This part may be stuck in a time where that trauma was happening. And the work here is to get to know that part with compassion and with care and with safety so that it's able to realize that it's not in that time anymore, that it's in a safe place now, and it's able to set down that burden and take on a new role in the system. The next thing I have here is that we all have a core self. So, that core self is a part of us that lives at our very center, and that is truly who we are. And something that internal family systems will tell us is that that core self can never be damaged or lost. It's always whole, it's always undamaged, it's always present, and it's always capable of healing. Now, that's not to say that it is always super accessible to us. Sometimes it can be quite hard to find that self, especially when we're living in a place of fear or anger, or we're really stuck in the past, or those parts are really extreme and really present. So, one of the goals of this work is to get back to that core self so that we can lead from a centered place. And when self leads, healing naturally follows. So the goal of parts work is not to fix or get rid of any parts. We're never trying to get rid of them because, again, they all have positive intentions for us. But the idea is to build trust, understanding, and compassion that can allow these parts to soften. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is somatic therapy. Just like parts work, somatic therapy is an umbrella term, and beneath that, there are many different types of therapies. The one that I rely most heavily on here is something called somatic experiencing therapy, which was developed by Dr. Peter Levine. But for the most part, somatic therapies are body centered approaches to healing, and oftentimes they take a bottom up approach. So, a top down approach is when we start with the mind and we use our cognition, we use our thinking brain in order to influence our thoughts, feelings, emotions, behaviors. Whereas a bottom up approach takes a little bit of a different starting point and we start with the body. So we might not have cognitive stories about the body. We might not have memories about what's happening there, but our body does remember. Our body does hold on to these memories and experiences. So, somatic therapies reject the idea that cognitive wisdom is superior in some way to embodied wisdom. In the West, we're taught that the best type of knowledge, the only really good type of knowledge, is logic, it's reason, it's the type of knowledge that exists in our minds. Um, and somatic therapies say that actually we hold a lot of wisdom in our body. Our body knows the way to healing, our body knows what it needs to do. So, tapping into that allows us to tap into just a different type of knowledge. There's nothing wrong with cognitive knowledge, it's important as well. But this is the idea that we can have both, actually. And then finally, here I have that somatic therapies use things like sensations, breath, movement, posture, and many other things to support healing. So, why would somebody want to use a somatic approach? Why is it beneficial to use a somatic approach? First of all, a somatic approach or using the body can help us to stay grounded in the present moment and anchor us to the here and now. I don't know about you, but my mind spends a lot of time in the future, worrying and being anxious and planning. And it also spends a lot of time in the past, ruminating and regretting, or thinking, replaying traumatic experiences or events. So, being able to use the body that is rooted here in the present, that exists only in the present, really allows us to stay in this moment. It also provides us tools that can help us regulate the nervous system. So, by turning our attention towards the body, we can start to notice what the nervous system is doing. And the nervous system can cue us to maybe when something is triggering, even though, again, we don't cognitively know it is, we don't understand why it would be. Um, and that can allow us to start to unlock deeper levels of experience because we're able to provide safety to go there. We're able to connect with the body and say, it is actually okay to go here because we are in the here and now, we are in the present. And then finally, here, it allows us to access wisdom that's not filtered through things like logic and thinking. Our thinking is flawed. Our thinking and our logic are influenced by society. They're influenced by narratives. They're influenced by experiences of, of trauma that we've had, of narratives that we've been told, of burdens that we hold. But the wisdom of our body is a much deeper and more ancient wisdom. And by connecting with that, we just get a broader idea of what's actually going on for us. We get a broader type of wisdom. So when you put somatic therapy and parts work together, you get an integrative approach called somatic parts work. And this has a lot of benefits. It enables us to access parts and emotions that exist beyond our conscious awareness, including pre-verbal parts, child parts, shadow parts, or parts of us that are deeply exiled. So maybe those parts that hold on to so much pain that we've had to hide them really far away and we're no longer able to access them. Um, it enables us to recognize and release burdens that are held in the body through somatic tracking. So, again, we may not have a story about why, when we start doing some parts work, we're starting to feel like a pain in the shoulder. But if we can lean into that, we can still track that sensation and move towards that sensation and sometimes get a somatic release that can feel very healing. This type of work also enables us to build self trust because we can work with wounded parts, we can work with trauma, we can work with exiled parts while caring for the nervous system. So, working really hard not to re traumatize or re trigger the nervous system. When the nervous system tells us that we're going too far, we can take a step back. We can kind of listen to that as a protective part. And then finally, it allows us to expand our window of tolerance because as we start to build this self trust that, each time the nervous system cues me to, I'm going to take a step back, we're building that trust in ourselves that we can take a step further. So we're slowly, slowly expanding that window of tolerance so that we can get to those really deep parts, those parts that hold on to that really deep pain, and we can eventually get there and offer them healing as well. So who can benefit from this work? I believe that most everybody can benefit from this work in some way, but here's a couple points about what this work does really well. So for one, I guess this work goes deeper than the surface. So it's for those who are wanting to explore the hidden, fearful, hurt, and sometimes extreme parts of themselves. And for anybody really who wants to explore themselves more deeply. It can be really helpful for people who are experiencing unprocessed trauma or emotional pain, or for anybody with anxiety, overwhelm, dissociation, depression, impulsivity, dysregulation, self harm, addictions, and chronic pain. It's great for individuals who struggle with self criticism, self hatred, self loathing, any sort of internal conflict. Um, it can be good. It can be really great to kind of conceptualize the parts of yourself that are in conflict and get to know those. It can also be helpful for anybody who is looking for more relational and emotional freedom. So this work has a ability to create spaciousness inside of ourselves to get a little bit of space from all of those parts that are fearful, those parts that are hurt, so that we can really lead from center, lead from ourself, and we get to make more choices about how we engage with the world and how we engage with ourselves. And finally, this approach is really great for anybody who is looking for something that is very client led, compassion centered, and non pathologizing. So I just want to talk a bit before I wrap up about how you can continue on with this work. So if this feels like a good fit for you, if you feel really called to doing some somatic parts work, you can always book a one-on-one session. I offer somatic parts work counseling through the Strength and Heart office in Victoria in person, and I also offer it online across Canada. So you can book a session by going to strengthandheart.ca. You can look for my profile. My name is Kendra. And you can book in online there or send me an email and we can work something out that way. The next option we have here is our group that's coming up in November. We're going to start advertising for that soon. So follow Strength and Heart on social media or sign up for the newsletter, and you'll be able to see that. And this group is run by myself as well as a colleague of mine. Her name is Brooke Fry, and she's also a social worker at Strength and Heart. We've run the group one time before, and it was wonderful. It was really impactful for us as facilitators. We got some really great feedback from clients. The group is 4 weeks, and it's 2 hours each session, so 2 hours each week. And we dive into different somatic parts work topics. We do experiential elements, so we'll always have some sort of experience in the group. And we also offer a lot of group sharing and group therapy in those sessions. And then finally, if you're interested in just reading more about somatic parts work or parts work in general, you can look into a couple of books that I would recommend. So the first one is definitely more based in parts work. It's called No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz. It's a great starting point. It's a really easy to read book. I really enjoyed the audiobook. And then the other book that I would recommend is called Somatic Internal Family Systems Therapy, and that is by Susan McConnell. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now. Feel free to reach out to me by email if anybody has any questions about somatic parts work or how to begin, and I hope you all have a great day.